All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm sure there might be a couple more stragglers, but we have an hour today, so they'll catch up. So I am Lori, and I'm the manager of digital content and social media at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, and we're all here this afternoon to share our experiences with Facebook advertising. And throughout the next hour, if you guys have any questions, I will be keeping an eye on our Twitter stream. I'm pretty sure every slide should have our special tracking hashtag. Just make sure you add that #T41 for us, okay? And then at the end, we'll try to answer as many questions as we can as well. But before we get started, can we do a quick, cheesy hand raise poll for us? We can see kind of the lay of the land. So we'd love to know first if your museum has not started any Facebook advertising at all, but you're considering starting. Okay. Uh-oh, lost it. Knew that would happen. We have to keep. There we go. How about if your museum has experimented some with Facebook advertising, but maybe you just run ads occasionally, but don't have a strong strategy yet? Well, good. Okay, that makes sense. And then how about if you're pretty confident in Facebook advertising, but you're just looking for additional tips today? Great. Cool. Great. Okay, that's really helpful. Thanks, guys. All right, let's get started. So even though Facebook is a big, confusing, ever-changing world, it's still an extremely important tool for us, especially as we have these limited budgets in our digital department, so we really have to take advantage of it, as we all know. So today our hope is that you'll get some help through this haze of options of Facebook advertising and learn how to love Facebook advertising in spite of it all to connect with your online communities. So we're going to do that first by sharing an overview of Facebook ad opportunities, followed by some examples from our museums, and we'll then finish up with some tips and time for questions. But first, let's introduce ourselves and who you're talking to. So as I mentioned, I'm Lori Bird McDevitt with the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, and we're the largest children's museum in the world. It just happens to be in fabulous Indianapolis. It's one of the top 20 most visited in North America, and we have 11 permanent exhibits and 4 temporary exhibit spaces. And our exhibits are focused on family learning and engagement, and our exhibits range from anything from dinosaurs to spaceships and pop culture and everything in between.
My name is Mallory Laporte. I'm the communications specialist at the Children's Museum here in Pittsburgh. We're located on the north side, so that way, on the other side of the Allegheny River. We have 9 permanent exhibits and 1 traveling exhibit space. I've worked at the museum for 11 years, and I've watched the museum's marketing go from traditional to digital. In fact, when I started at the museum, we were still printing and mailing our newsletters, and now I can email 30,000 people just by clicking my mouse. So I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was filmed in Pittsburgh. So thank you. Fred Rogers, yes, we are on a first name basis with Mr. Rogers, was a mentor to our executive director. He attended the opening of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood exhibit we had in 1998. We still celebrate his birthday every year with free admission. In fact, today we kicked off our annual Mr. Rogers Sweater Drive, where we get donations of sweaters and we distribute them to the community. We've collected over 35,000 in 11 years. And so Mr. Rogers' philosophies really inspire what we do at the museum every day. And if you visit us while you're here, you can see one of his iconic sweaters as well as many puppets from the show.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, and this is my first MCN. I'm really excited to be here. I've really enjoyed everything I've learned this week about the museum community. I work with, here I'll do a little bit of mic check. I've worked with the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. I am part of Radius, which is their digital social media agency, and we're also located in Indianapolis. I'm currently serving the team as the account manager. Just a little bit of background about Radius and our relationship with TCMI. We work to build exciting and high-powered content campaigns and paid campaigns that are fueled by the museum's really interesting features and exhibits, and we've established some weekly content series such as a blog called Never Stop Asking Why and Saturday Science Experiments that have really created an audience that returns to the TCMI channels and are really high performers for them. But today we'll really be focusing on some of the learnings that we've had along the way of our past 5 years with our relationship with TCMI when it comes to Facebook advertising. So I'll go ahead and start with a quick overview of Facebook ads, and I know a lot of some of what can be confusing are just the words, the language that's used. So we'll do a quick overview of when we say this is what we mean when it comes to social media. So the first is optimization, and to explain this, I'll kind of explain what it's not. Facebook ads are not a crock pot. You can't set it and forget it. One really important thing that I think is key to running a successful Facebook campaign is spending time and dedicating resource to doing daily or weekly check-ins on your campaign and taking account of what the performance is and making adjustments to your audience or to your content to achieve the best possible cost per result. And some of those results are listed here: engagements, video views, and conversions, which we'll talk a lot about the Facebook pixel today. You got a quick overview of that really exciting thing. And then the cost per is probably the most valuable metric that you can bring back to your team when it comes to reporting on your ads. So, Facebook strategy in general, we'll sort of dive into that. It can be sort of like this overwhelming thing if you don't have a really established Facebook strategy, but I think the most important way to break it down in the easiest way is to look at what your goals are. Your strategy should be determined by your goals, and we'll sort of break down what some of those can be. But a really important note is that it's key to communicate your goals and really clearly define them with metrics and with numbers to your leadership, and that way you can hold yourself accountable when you're reporting on how your ads are performing. And so we're talking a little bit about the starting point, about how you set up your social strategy. And one thing I want to kind of digress away from the Facebook ads part of it is to let you know that we have these little handy cheat sheets for you guys up here. When you're getting your social channels up to speed, one of the easiest ways to do that is to understand what the specifications and the proper dimensions are for every single channel when you're creating content. So if that's something that you would like or you are interested in, please take as many as you want. Take them back to your team if you have multiple staff members working on your social channels. Just a really helpful leave behind for you guys to take home with you, and hopefully remember this fondly.
Yes, they're right up here for you at the end if you want them.
So going back into starting your social strategy and talking about your goals. When you look at your goals, it can be anything from maybe you're launching a new exhibit and you really want to drive the awareness of that to your community, or maybe your directors have given you specific ticket or revenue goals. Those are going to look really different, and the social strategies are going to look very different. But again, really clearly understanding what are the metrics that you want to hit and defining those and communicating those are what's going to put you on a path to success when it comes to executing your paid campaigns. So, Facebook ads are they're optimized to help you achieve the specific actions that work towards your goals. I'll kind of define each of those here in a second, but I'd like to consider these specific ad types and the fact that Facebook is here to help you. Consider that your superpower. And that's just our really cheesy metaphor there. But we'll go through.
There's a lot of cheesy metaphors today.
We love cheesy metaphors, you guys. We'll go through some of those specific ad types here. The first one that we'd like to talk about for a lot of you who, it sounds like everyone has some experience with Facebook ads, but your go-to is probably just starting out going to be an engagement ad. And for those of you who already, obviously you're sharing content organically on your channel, these are going to be metrics that are already familiar to you. Likes, shares, link clicks, comments, all of those are essentially just elevated to a larger audience and a more targeted audience. Go ahead, next slide. So video views ads, and not sure if you've heard this, but video is king. Can I get a quick show of hands? Who here watches food videos on Facebook? Yes, absolutely. That's kind of all I do on Facebook nowadays, actually. And so Facebook sees that behavior that you're taking. If you're a person that tends to watch Facebook videos and you watch them to completion, or if you watch more than 50% of them, Facebook takes account of that. It sees your behavior and is more likely to serve you a video views ad because you've already established through your behavior that you're receptive to video content. And I think that's really good news for us as advertisers or museums that are advertising to its community, because Facebook's helping you out here. On its own back end, it's optimizing to take behavior into account and to serve people who are more receptive to your ad.
I'll take this quick tip for you.
Yeah.
Give Sarah a break. So we have a couple of quick tips just kind of scattered throughout, and it is true that 75% of people are going to view your video with sound off, so definitely consider captions, and there's a lot of options for adding captions to videos, but I have even found in my experience that when we're doing new video content, I really love to repurpose existing video content, but I always have to come behind and say, oh man, this one's really, audio heavy. It's someone actually like talking at the camera. It's not just all about the flashy visuals. If we really want to get our bang for our buck with this video, we need to take the time to go in and add captions. So something to really think about. Like for our audiences with being children's museums, both Mallory and I, a lot of us, it's like that breastfeeding mom on her couch or like a baby napping near you, so they're not going to have their sound on, and a lot of people don't. So just something to really consider.
And really quick on top of that is that you don't necessarily have to go outside of Facebook to add these captions. That's available within the tool. When you're setting up your ad, Facebook will auto-generate what it thinks your captions are. It's usually wrong, but it gives you a good starting point for going in and editing that transcription. So conversion ads are some of the probably maybe newer to some of you, and if your goals are based upon some sort of web traffic metric or action taken on your website, this is really going to be a crucial ad type for you. So maybe you're trying to obtain leads through filling out a form on your site or trying to achieve purchases for tickets. Again, Facebook is measuring the behavior that people are taking. If they're more likely to fill out forms, Facebook knows it. If historically you are somebody that clicks on an ad and purchases through that conversion point, Facebook knows it and is going to initially make sure it sends your ads to that group of people. This does require installation of a Facebook pixel, which can be kind of a daunting thing, but again, Facebook has given you tools to really make that as easy as possible. It's as easy as having a quick conversation with your IT or your web team, and Facebook will actually give you a link to copy and paste into an email within Facebook that gives them step-by-step developer language for what they need to do to install the pixel on your site. If for resources or other reasons, conversion ads just aren't an option and getting that pixel isn't something you're ready to do today, but you'd still like to send traffic to your website, traffic ads are a second really good option for you. They're similar to conversions ads, except they don't have any of that back-end data that Facebook gathers on the activity that's taken once they've arrived at your site. So it does enforce behavior that is clicky. That's what Facebook calls it. So people that click on ads are who this ad will likely be served to. You don't know what the actions they've taken afterwards, so sometimes can achieve a little bit of a higher bounce rate. But again, if conversion ads just aren't something you're ready for, traffic ads are another really good go-to.
Did you want to mention link tagging?
Oh, yes, thank you.
You could probably more concisely say your thoughts.
Sure. So link tagging is essentially adding a set of parameters, UTM parameters, and Google has some really handy tools for ways that you can add those so that you can then measure through Google Analytics some of the actions that are taken on your site. Not in the same way that Facebook does, but it does give you a little bit more information. All right. Oh, and a little bit more wizardry. I hope you like Harry Potter puns. There's more. So some of the other ad types that are available to you, again, brand awareness, spreading awareness of a new exhibit to your existing audience, lead generation, reach. You can find new audiences and new people who maybe aren't even exposed to museums in your community. I don't know what app installs do. Do you know what app install ads do?
I don't.
I'm pretty sure they install apps. So when you're ready to run your ad, the first step is defining what your target audience is going to be. And I like to go through this exercise. It's really good to illustrate to maybe to your executive or your board that isn't necessarily familiar with Facebook ads. They say, oh, well, you're putting organic content out there. Our audience is seeing it. This is a really good way to explain it to them. This is your Facebook audience. That is how many people see your organic posts. It's about 6%. And as many as you probably know, thanks to Facebook's handy algorithm, they've turned Facebook content into a pay-to-play sort of system. You really also, when you're sharing your organic posts, you don't have any control over who within your audience is seeing it. So it could be people who are less receptive to the content or less likely to go through your call to action than those who are more targeted. So that's really where pay distribution and just defining your target audience comes into play. Yay, more Harry Potter. Okay, so with just a little bit of a budget, and we'll discuss the budget spectrum a little bit later, you really have the world at your fingertips. You can forget about the circle, forget about the 6%, because now you can target specific groups of people within the entire Facebook audience and for certain ad types across the entire internet, across other websites outside of Facebook using Facebook ads. And that is where the real magic happens. Okay. So a couple of ways, and I could honestly probably do a whole other hour about just building target audiences. That is for another MCN, I hope. So some really basics is to kind of start with the demographics, the information that you already have about your museum visitors. What is their age, their location, their income, household composition. And then you can also look at some of the behaviors that they've taken, and within your Facebook ad, determine which of those behaviors sort of define the audience that you want to target to. And there's, of course, again, lots of other ways, but I like to think of ourselves as a Facebook matchmaking service. Once you've defined what the content is going to be, find that perfect audience, that perfect fit for who's going to be most receptive to receiving that content and taking whatever action you have placed for it. So I'm about to take a big drink of water because I'm going to pass it over to Lori and Mallory so they can go through some of the examples of these tactics in practice.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good job. It was a lot. A lot for her to
Cheers.
get through. All right, so we're going to get started with me at the Children's Museum. And I'm going to start off with some context on first my department so you can just understand kind of what I'm working within. So I manage all of the museum social channels and the blog. And I also strategize content distribution across our website and e-news. We're a team of 3, so my boss is the director of digital strategy. I'm the manager of social media, and then we also have a digital writer who I always call her my best Christmas present. She adds the sparkle to everything in my life. So I call her the sparkle in like every meeting. For the past 5 years, Radius has served as our digital agency, as Sarah mentioned, focusing on social media content creation, and then the distribution and reporting. And really together, we've ridden this crazy roller coaster of Facebook, and then of course advertising being the big loop-de-loop in the middle there for us all. And you know, it's really become a necessity for reaching our goals. So as you can see, Radius has been a wealth of knowledge, and I wouldn't be here without them. So that's why she's here with me. So I'm gonna share a little bit more about how we've worked together to implement our Facebook advertising. I'll share some examples from some of our campaigns and how we report on our progress and some of our learnings. But first, I want to remind all of us perfectionists in the room, all of us who want to know all of the things out there, and those of us who might be a little overwhelmed at all this information at the moment, to just take a deep breath with me, deep cleansing breath, and remember that we can't all be experts. This is a really hard lesson for me to learn. In fact, even preparing for this presentation, I was like getting really stressed out, and then I added in this slide to make myself feel better. I do not understand all of this. And that does honestly bug me, but I let it go and remember that that's why we invested in Radius, to have those experts around and to give us that brain space to do all the billion of other things that us social media managers have to do in our jobs as museumists. So take the info away from today that you can, do with it what you can. And I know that we all have a variety of budgets, and it might not be that you can have a radius, but it might be that you just focus on this slice of information of maybe the type of ad that you feel like might work for your museum and really become comfortable with that. Just test, iterate, like all of our techie friends do too. And yeah, just keep that in mind. We all need to hear it. So over the years, we've gone from simply experimenting with Facebook ads to implementing a full-blown cross-departmental strategy. Now our post activity is about 10 to 15% paid at any given time. That means that 90% of our content are those typical daily organic posts that are usually non-promotional, in the moment, behind-the-scenes stuff that our audience gravitates towards. But I'm going to share a little bit of the breakdown of what all of our paid looks like. And that's what's kind of listed out here. So in 2017, it was the first year that our traditional advertising team shifted a significant portion. Deb, do you mind closing the door? All right. Thanks. Appreciate it. So 2017 was the first year that our traditional advertising team shifted a significant portion of their budget towards actual social advertising. And so they've earmarked actually $10,000 a year to mirror our brand awareness campaigns and our exhibit ad campaigns that are seen in our traditional advertising. And that was just a game changer for us. So that added on a lot to our plate, but it was really exciting to see that shift happen. So this is in addition to another $10,000 that our social media team designates to boost social ads. And this is where we fill in the gaps with kind of the promotional content that we know our audiences will really appreciate hearing, but is, again, more on the promotional side, like a public program that we want to get out of our organic news feed, but we want to target to those specific audiences. Stuff like our chocolate slide, which is shown here, which always like organically goes viral, but then we add that extra boost behind it and like really explode it. So that's stuff that maybe our traditional advertising team wouldn't appreciate, but us on the social side, we're like, yes, chocolate slide. Right, Brad? Fellow TCM chocolate slide aficionado. Oh, actually, okay. Another really important part of this is our departmental ads, which I actually noted here as well. So we've started to actually distribute out our Facebook advertising to other departments as well. And when we're strategizing with them, we bring it up as an option. So when you're trying to market your events, it doesn't just have to be a postcard or an email. Let's consider how your budget can be applied as well to Facebook advertising. So this might be something like our development department putting budget towards like promoting one of their events, like an After Dark for a fundraiser. It might be our events and rentals department requesting ads targeted at newly engaged couples so that they can get new wedding rentals. So that has also added on a whole other level, and every ad takes a chunk of my time, and so that's what leads us to this. It all sounds like a lot to manage, and it is. This is how I keep track of it all, and I don't expect you to read it. This is just more of a general feeling that I'm going for here. So my main worry when I'm coordinating all of our ads is that we're flooding our audiences with a lot of different messages, competing messages, both organically and paid. So even though paid posts help a lot with getting those promotional messages out of our organic feed, there's still a lot of opportunity for the same people to get hit with multiple messages from us. So the primary goal of this chart is to keep track of what audiences are seeing what when. And content is distributed across inner and outer markets. So this is like geographic regions that I'm noting here, as well as different audience differentiators like household income. Sarah was mentioning that as one of the primary demographics, and I think household income is probably one of our biggest audiences that we target and like create those slices out of. So it's something to really consider for your own audiences. So that schedule is one important tool for me as I go about my Facebook ads process. But generally speaking, here's how the logistics usually go. I'm just going to run through kind of my daily life dealing with Facebook ads right now. So after checking in on my Facebook ad schedule from before, I review kind of any ad requests that are coming in from different departments and see kind of the lay of the land of of where we're heading with all of our audiences. And I make any budget, strategy, and scheduling recommendations back to those departments. I then review the week's ad content with Radius during our amazing weekly production call that I live for every week. And they make any final recommendations and tweaks to the strategy for the ad. So they're really like my gut check and the keepers of all the latest Facebook wizardry. So they literally might have just come off a call with their Facebook rep and might be like, well, there's 3 new ad types now available for you. So, which really did happen once.
Did really happen.
So let's consider what that strategy would be based on these new options. And that's just something I would not have had the time to know about or figure out. So I really appreciate that. We also review our previous week's ad performance. And so that helps inform our next week's ads, and our different learnings from that will apply to anything upcoming. And then I confirm the ad copy and the creative, sometimes using our team's digital writer to get that best quip within the character count for Facebook ads, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. The creative, whether it's a graphic or a video, often Radius ends up creating, even though we have a fabulous in-house team of designers, Radius often has the very latest in their mind of what those limitations are with Facebook with different design attributes. So they often design our Facebook ad content. And then Radius is also the one that starts our ad, they implement it, and monitor its performance. And if the reach or the click-throughs or anything like that isn't performing up to what we think it should be performing at, they will contact me immediately and consider what tweaks we can make to it. Otherwise, if it's like a long-term ad over a period of weeks, we'll be reviewing that weekly and making alterations and optimizing that ad to reach our goals. And then we also have our reporting. So this is just the first sheet of one of our bi-weekly reports that we go over on our calls. And it includes a deep dive into our ads and also all of our organic content performance. So I'm going to share a little bit of kind of my learnings of how we format our reports to really make it all make sense for me as someone, again, who's not an expert in all of this, and making it kind of like digestible for the higher ups as well. So one of the things that we learned is that as our Facebook advertising began to take off, we realized that we needed to alter our reporting to better reflect the impact of paid versus organic. So we made a few changes in both of our bi-weekly and monthly reports, which involved removing our paid posts from our featured top content. So I realized that it was altering, because of course we're putting like $300 behind an ad, of course that's gonna be our top content. We removed all of our ads from that listing of top content, so we could just focus on the organic, which is what you're really wanting to show is what's resonating with your audiences organically. In this sort of reporting, that was our goal. So just something to consider when you're lumping all of your Facebook posts together in your reporting. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater in getting those learnings from what's resonating with your audiences organically. However, I still wanted to represent what our paid was for that week. So that's what's in this red box down here. We call them our reach campaigns when we do Facebook advertising. So we still wanted to note these are the ads that we're running at this time. So when we're looking at all of our stats later on in our report, we could say, oh yeah, that was a whole lot of ads that we were running. Of course, this month is gonna be a huge bump because there was an extra $3,000 going in because it was our busy fall break time. So I feel like that's really helped a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so these are a couple of examples of different campaigns we've run. And I'm gonna start with a breakdown into our audience targeting, as Sarah mentioned earlier. And as you guys might often wanna do as well, we often discern between our member and our non-member audiences and really make considerations around what the goals would be for both of those audiences. So if you think about it, our member ads are gonna be a lot more on the engagement side because they're just trying to build awareness. They don't have to pay for anything, right? So we're not worried about revenue and conversions with Facebook ads with members. So we just want to boost an awareness of an event coming up that weekend. But in this case, it's a little bit different because it's a haunted house, and this is an additional ticket that our members needed to buy. And because they're our most captive audience, awaiting this tradition every year, it was just made sense to try to do a link click ad. That's a really hard thing to say.
I know.
A link click ad to get them to make that additional purchase. And this led the ad to be one of our most successful because we effectively utilized this audience with a much higher affinity towards the event. And they were already looking to make that conversion, they just needed the extra reminder. And this post also ended up having a huge engagement number and prompted a lot of community dialogue. Other people reminding other people, don't forget to get your haunted house tickets. And it was one of our highest conversions of the past 6 months because of this link click ad.
Lori, how much money did you spend on that?
I believe that was was that 1,000? It was 1,000. 1,000 over a month? Mm-hmm. Good question. Okay. We've also had a lot of fun with our pixels and retargeting. And this is just one kind of fun example to share with you as you're thinking of different options for retargeting. And we can get more into retargeting here in a bit. We had a situation where a very popular adults-only event, our Pop Culture After Dark, sold out well before our ad had spent its full budget. This was an ad that the budget was provided by our development team, and they had provided us the money, so we wanted to utilize that budget in a unique way rather than just being like, here you go, you can take that money back. So we had a second After Dark event that was coming up, and it wasn't selling as well, and it was with the theme of weird science. And we thought it would be more beneficial to them to make the most out of a frustrating situation for a lot of these folks. They were complaining about it being sold out, of course. And so we wanted to remind them that they could go to this next After Dark event. So what we did was we used a pixel to track those who had landed on the After Dark registration page. We removed those folks that had completed a cart purchase so that it wasn't the folks that had already made the purchase. And then we retargeted them with a new, very, very specific ad that our digital writer wrote a nice, quick little quip, trade in the Letterman jacket for a lab coat. And the result was that the Weird Science After Dark sold out too. So. And another thing I wanted just to point out real fast is a note on conversion and defining conversion. So this is showing just one column of our running report where we maintain the basic metrics of every Facebook ad that we run. And we've gotten more and more specific in how we document what we mean when we say conversions, because we realized that in our meetings, our reporting meetings, that we were having to explain to one another all the time. So I want to point out first off too that there's often a discrepancy between what Facebook tells you is your conversions and what Google Analytics tells you is your conversions.
Attribution models are another whole other talk.
So I would suggest don't try to reconcile that. Don't let it keep you up at night, but just be transparent about it in your reporting. And you can note both of them and just do with that what you will. But that's, again, another topic. Beyond that, conversions don't always have to mean a completed cart purchase or any sort of revenue generation. That's the traditional sense of the term. But a conversion can also be a blog view. It can be a form completion. It can be anything else that achieves your goal that you can track with a pixel, really. So all of these are valid conversions, and you just need to be sure to clearly state that in your reporting and try to be as consistent as possible when you're reporting up and then month to month so that you're being sure that you're meaning the same thing. All right, now on to Mallory.
Thank you. As the communications specialist, I am one of 2 people in our new media department, so I manage our digital communications, including social media, email. I do some work on our website, digital signage in the museum, things like that. We work pretty closely with our marketing department to create a coherent message across all of our marketing channels, and together we do the majority of our marketing in-house. We currently budget $7,500 a year for Facebook, but we expect that number to begin to increase dramatically in the coming years. We're kind of a step behind the Indianapolis Children's Museum in that we haven't had that great $10,000 windfall just yet of the bonus money, but we're hoping with, since we're doing more of a deep dive into our Facebook ad results more recently, that we're hoping that we're going to be able to prove ourselves to our other departments and our board so that we can get some more money coming our way. Because it's such a nonprofit thing, even though I'm in the new media department, my budget actually lives within the marketing department. So I not only have to prove myself to my boss, but to someone else who wants to keep all the money for himself. So it's a little bit of a challenge. So up to this point, our Facebook strategy has kind of been the by the seat of our pants method, in that when a program's not selling, we hurry up and make a post and throw some money behind it, and we've realized that is not the best strategy. So we are, in the next fiscal year, hoping to get more of a schedule like Lori showed, because we realize we don't just want people to learn about our events, we want to use Facebook for overall brand recognition, and that's not something that we're doing very well. So we are going to kind of re-strategize and try new things this year.
Click.
Yes, please. So I'm just going to briefly talk about what our Facebook strategy has been up to this point. We found that our audience is pretty disinterested if we hit them with all marketing all the time. And fall right now is typically a slower time at the museum because kids have gone back to school, there are fewer field trips, so we are doing everything we can to entice people to come to the museum, and we tend to get a little promotion heavy. And this post is a great example. Every year we make clay sugar skulls for Dia de los Muertos. It's a very loved event. Our visitors come every year and they tell us how much they love it. But as you can see on this post, out of our 30,000 followers, about 1,600 saw this post and only 3 people liked it, one of them being me and another being my mom. So it was not the response we were expecting. So we found that our audience responds to a mix of promotion, information related to our exhibits, behind the scenes information about exhibits or upcoming programming, and of course anything Mr. Rogers related because we are in Pittsburgh. Next slide, please. So this was one of our most successful posts ever. This is one of our exhibits technicians setting up our Foku pendulum, and this type of pendulum knocks down a circle of pegs throughout the day to represent the rotation of the Earth. And I'm not sure if you're that familiar with the Children's Museum, but we're housed in 2 historic buildings and 1 more modern building. So this pendulum has been there for a very long time. It is in the former Buell Planetarium. So people were so excited to learn about this historical item, and it went so far. We got 33,000 reach, which was at the time more followers than our page even had. But as typical in working in social media, I don't know if you can read the top comment, but it is a gentleman calling me out on my slightly incorrect math about the degree of the rotation. So just when you think you've got it all figured out, someone is there to remind you you're not in fact a mathematician. So now that I've shown you a little bit about our strategy overall, I'll show you a few examples of recent paid ads and their results. So one of our most popular and well-known exhibits at the museum is our Make Shop, where kids learn through hands-on activities like woodworking, sewing, computer programming, things like that. And 4 times per year, the Make Shop staff hosts a 21 and over event called Make Night. And themes range from summer camp to My Snarky Valentine, and the last Make Night was a murder mystery theme. So attendees drank wine and made disguises, carved hidden compartments into books, things like that. And because most parents can't get drunk and make fake mustaches on a Thursday night, we really need to reach beyond our typical audience. So our Make Shop staff created this great photo here on the left that we used on our website and in print and digital ads, and so we used the photo for our Facebook event header, and everything was going great. But 2 weeks before the event, they decided that ticket sales needed a push, so we were going to put $100 into boost the event, and Facebook immediately rejected the ad because there is too much text in this image. Facebook will reject an ad that has more than 20% text within the image. So we tried a few things, and you can see on the right there, we tried changing the way it looked a little bit. We tried adding in a new photo, but Facebook wasn't having any of it until we added 2 photos there in the middle one. And nobody liked this ad. Nobody was happy with it, but it was the only thing Facebook would accept, and we were coming up on the event, and we didn't have any time to come up with a whole new image. So learn from our mistake. If you are going to be marketing an event and you think you want to include a Facebook ad, remember the 20% rule when you are creating your graphics for that event, or you realize you may need to have an alternate image. And you can use the link at the bottom to test your potential image to see if it will pass the Facebook image text check. Another one of our key events is the Maker Faire. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Maker Fairs, but they happen all around the world. And they are dubbed the greatest show and tell on earth, where people demonstrate homemade inventions, from a 20-foot tall fire-breathing dragon to 3D printers that print pancakes. So Maker Fairs are an all-ages event. They're typically not held at children's museums, and we've really struggled to attract an audience that is beyond our typical family audience. So this year, since we had hosted the fair for a few years, we had an email database of about 5,000 people that had attended the fairs in the past. So we used Facebook's lookalike feature to target people with similar interests of those in the database, and targeted the ad to 5 states within a reasonable driving distance. And the ad ran for a week. During that time, the page views of the ticketing website nearly doubled, and ticket sales in the targeted states increased by 642% over the previous year. We spent $300 on this ad in particular, and $3,000 overall promoting the Maker Faire. And the fair attendees increased by 46% over 2016, and we didn't spend very much money on Facebook at all in 2016, so we were obviously very pleased with this result, and we will likely use this as a way to boost what we can spend on future events, and we'll probably use the lookalike feature to attract potential holiday travelers coming up and the like.
All right, well, we're gonna keep moving on with some more tactics and tips and tricks, and we had to get our Tim Gunn reference in there, so it's back to Sarah.
All right. So one thing that we hear a lot when talking to nonprofits especially is that there's really a wide spectrum of budgets and resources available, and we understand that. So I wanted to just give you a few tips. If you're starting with a smaller budget, really think about the goals that you can achieve using engagement ads. Maybe you can show your curators just how far their ad or their videos reach when you add them to your Facebook advertising, and compared to an organic posts. If you are working with sort of a medium budget and you want to start dabbling a little bit with conversions, and you're able to get your Facebook pixel installed, I would start with purchases. Anything that includes dollar signs really tends to move the needle when it comes to changing minds about social media ads and social media budgets. If you're working with a more sophisticated department, we recommend aligning with the conversion funnel structure. Those who have backgrounds in marketing, and especially your marketing department, they're already familiar with this, and so excuse me, if you're able to speak that language, that'll really as well help move the needle. And another really great way to get started is to use the assets you have. Just like Mallory was saying, they had an email list, and they used it to build an audience. And they also used it to build a lookalike audience. So kind of what a lookalike audience is, if you're not familiar, is if she had 5,000 people in her email database, Facebook sees all 5,000 of those people and analyzes their behaviors and what their makeup is, and then scrapes the entire country, and will pull in people who are most similar to the people that already exist in your database. And it will scale that to 1% of the country's population who are most similar to your email list, or 2% or 3%. Yes, question?
How do we get the email list into Facebook?
Great question. The Audiences tool in the Facebook Ads Manager allows you to upload your CSV file or Excel file, and it's just as easy as that.
Okay.
Yep.
emailing those people, it finds people
Yep.
similar to them, okay. Is there a feature, because I've been looking into doing this myself, is there a feature that allows you to email both them and lookalikes?
So we're actually not emailing anybody. We're using,
Yes.
yeah. So yes, you are able to, once you have that email list audience, you use that audience to build a lookalike of it. Is that your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering if you're able, once you upload that email list, if it allows you to target the ad to both the people
Yes.
on the list and lookalikes.
Absolutely.
That's what we often do.
Yeah.
We usually, and it cross-references with Facebook, like all of the emails in Facebook. So it truly is your members. Like if it's our member email list, it is emailing the people that have the same email associated with their Facebook account and their member account with the museum.
Yep.
So our members are seeing it, plus we add on a lookalike list.
Got
Have
it.
you seen a percentage of those that are not, like, that are not on Facebook from your members?
I'm
Like,
sorry.
when you upload a list, not all of those emails are gonna
Sure.
pair up. Is there usually a percentage that you see
Um,
don't show up, and like, kind of like, what's that happy medium between getting the maximized lookalike audience based off of your email list?
So-
What size you need to be?
The minimum that Facebook requires is 20 people. So obviously, the more people that you have, the better. And I don't think I know necessarily what that perfect number is because it's really just a good starting point. If you have it, use it and try it.
Do they tell you, like, at any time you're uploading, do they tell you, like,
Like there's a
Oh, this-
75% match
This amount of
rate or
people don't
something like
match.
that?
Yes, they will
Right.
tell you how many
Yeah.
are excluded. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Last-
No, this is a really good topic, so we're happy to answer
Yeah.
questions about this.
Last question too, does it let you, then later export the list of lookalike emails, or does that
No.
live within Facebook?
Yes, that is within Facebook as a privacy reason.
Right. I
Got
was
it.
thinking that was probably the rationale behind it is all those
Yeah, for
email
sure.
privacy laws, so.
Other great assets that you probably already have is your organic, is the content that you're using within your programming and stuff that's already going well. Go ahead and that's a good starting point for what you would want to boost. We can go ahead.
On that
Oh,
one,
yes.
so I'm trying to get the distinction between an organic post and an ad, like, can you do an organic post and the same object becomes an ad, or is that a
So-
completely separate object that
Mhm.
you have to
So there's
create?
two ways that you can do it, which we actually, you're right, we didn't like lay this out clearly at the beginning, but you can originate a whole new post that is only an ad, and that is then like a dark post that your organic feeds are not seeing. But you can also take a post that you have already posted organically and boost it. So we differentiate, well, I knew that would happen. We differentiate between our dark ads and our boosted ads. That's what we call them, and I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
probably most call
Yeah,
them that.
pretty
So
similar.
you
yeah.
can choose either or. The thing to consider, though, which I always forget this, it's been years and Sarah reminds me nicely, is that you cannot target with the boost as much, right?
Right, yeah,
So
there are some limitations if you've
there's more
already posted
limitations to the
organically.
targeting if you're boosting.
Mhm.
Yes, with the dark ad, it's like the world is your oyster and you can get creepy targeting. But if you're boosting, you cannot.
So
Mhm.
one more piece, so, given that distinction,
There we go.
I'm trying to think, what's the value of the organic post?
I think that is a great question. Organic posts are, you're building a loyal audience. These are the people that are coming back to your page to enjoy the content that you're hopefully spending time doing, and it helps develop your voice of your museum. I don't know if either of you want to take this a little
Sure.
bit more, speak to that.
And I'd say it's a lot too of cross-posting with all of your other platforms, so if you're also, many of us are on Instagram and Twitter and potentially Pinterest and LinkedIn and even maybe Google+. If you're already, you can produce that content across, tweaking it, of course, slightly for the platform as, we mostly know as social media managers.
Yeah.
But
Handy guide.
yeah, because we always talk as social media managers about consistency being key. You want to maintain the consistency in your content, and it can't just all be ads. You want it to be that voice for your
Mhm.
organization. Do you have anything to add, Mallory?
I have a question really quickly. So totally is this I know we can upload emails and we can target people that have already sort of been engaged on our mailing list, but is there a way to do it so that it's like geographically targeted as well? Like,
Absolutely.
can you be like, for example, we've just launched online ticketing, we're trying to
Totally.
Before I chime in, do you have any insights, Mallory, about how you guys do any geographic targeting?
For the Maker Faire, that was really the first one that we've ever done that was that specific, but like I was mentioning, I definitely see us doing that in the future, trying to target out-of-town visitors during the holidays.
And we do a lot at our museum of inner and outer market. So we will have a very specific type of ad for an outer market as compared to like a local market. So we do a lot of within a 2-hour driving range, or what we call our donut counties. And we do that almost on every ad. But we also have an option of cross-referencing with our zip code data. So we actually have done some ads where we have a very specific campaign for a lower income demographic to focus on our reduced admission days. We do billboards in our in very particular zip codes, and then we also mirror those zip codes for our Facebook ads.
And you can just upload zip codes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, oh, that's.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
and that's
It's all about
something usually
layering
we
your
have
targeting.
already with your box offices are collecting zip codes often, so something to take advantage of.
I was just gonna say, I'm at the Children's Museum of Manhattan, and I do social
Hey.
media for them. Hey, guys. And we do something very similar for our classes where we know that, people from specific neighborhoods are coming in for specific classes, and you can target specific, zip codes, and in Manhattan, that's, usually we have to target 3 or 4 zip codes, because it's a radius, right? But we target very specifically, neighborhoods where we know people are coming from.
Yep.
We should come up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna keep.
Yep, keep it
Trucking.
moving. Another quick tip that I wanted to provide to you guys is to make sure that you're aligning the content you're creating for your ads with the goal you wish to achieve. Something that we've just learned historically is that photos are going to perform better when it comes to your conversions ads. So getting people from Facebook to your website through one of those link-click conversion ads happens easier with a photo. You can use video as well. We've just tended to see a little bit lower click-through. And that video content is really optimal for some of the brand awareness objectives. One thing that I wanted to go ahead and point out is that Facebook has this really great tool within the Ads Manager as you're building your video view ad. I know we've talked about how video is king, but it's also royally expensive to create. So using the slideshow tool is a really good method to build a video that looks like a video and acts like a video, but is actually a sequence of photos that you upload and have a little bit of customization available to you. It'll auto play and it'll loop in your feed, and it's just a really low cost, takes 15 extra seconds to upload your photos as a slideshow and still have that video audience. And so this is what if you click through. That's what it looks like. It looks just like a video in your feed, but it's actually a slideshow. And one really exciting thing that you can do with video, and we talk about retargeting audiences, is that you can build an audience of people who have viewed your video and use that group of people to target ads later. So I have a fun little flowchart coming up. So you run your video views ad. You now have an audience of people who have already engaged with your brand, who have already engaged with your museum, and you want to re-engage those people with maybe a conversions ad later, or maybe a lead generation ad later on. So that's something that we're doing right now with the Children's Museum. Every year during the holiday season, their Jolly Days exhibit is one that we want to encourage people to buy tickets to bring their families to. There's, typically days off where families can come visit. So where we're starting with them is by running this video views ad for Santa's Big Arrival, which is always a fun event. Santa comes in on an Indy car. We're in Indianapolis, so obviously a lot of fun, and it's a video that's always engaged really well. So by running the video views ad and then collecting the audience of people who have viewed a certain portion of it, we are then able to retarget those people this coming month with a conversions ad to buy tickets for Jolly Days. So they've enjoyed the Santa's Big Arrival content, they're receptive to the event, and hopefully are more likely to convert when we hit them with that purchases ad.
So I'll take this one. So this is something that I've finally gotten on the bandwagon with over the past few months. I kind of just ignored this worry for a while, but So with different Facebook ads, you can on a desktop, you can have your post be like a normal post that's almost kind of like a few sentences to a paragraph. However, when it's an ad, you need to think about how it's going to be represented across all of these different platforms. So mobile and even the right-hand column, and even now like in Facebook news links and with it
With
showing
the
up.
audience network when you go to
Right. There's
websites.
all of these different places that we're not even realizing our ads are showing up when we're doing Facebook ads. I get surprised sometimes. I'm like, whoa, why am I here in this random BuzzFeed article or whatever? So it's just the power of Facebook. So I've gotten a bit more savvy with using, I just use this little Facebook ad template, and instead of just Googling every single time what is the character count for each for each part of it, this is just what I always use. Making sure it's 90 characters for that first initial blurb about your post. Your headline is going to be your biggest blurb in your ad. It's only 25 characters though, so really making it count. So that's why here for our ad we have buy ahead and save. It's a really big message. And then after that, much smaller, is this link description of 30 characters that looks like kind of like a ... of what your the URL is going to be, but that's like kind of a fake out. Like it can be whatever you want it to be. So making all of those parts count for you really will help seal the deal.
Yeah.
And that again is where I use my digital writer a lot, because she can really take our big message and make it work in this really tiny way for Facebook ads.
Okay, as promised, we will go very top level over the Facebook pixel.
We
So
have, like only a couple minutes.
yeah,
Sorry,
just a couple
guys.
minutes, sorry. If you want to chat more about it afterwards, I will geek out with you 100%. So this is kind of a simplified version of the conversion funnel, and I found it's the best way to describe the Facebook pixel, because it's actually not just one pixel, it's multiple that can live on different pages of your website based on the actions that are taken. So view content, maybe it means that they've landed on your blog page and they've stayed long enough for that view content pixel to fire. They're there, they're not bouncing off. So obviously it can go all the way down to the purchase pixel that is fired, usually lands on a thank you page after someone's converted with a purchase. So I think the most important thing and the most powerful thing about the Facebook pixel and about using Facebook Advertise to drive conversions or to drive engagements, and this is something that I've actually heard a lot this week during the conference, is that so often, and for the longest time, social media has lived up at the top. We've lived in the brand awareness space, and that's all we've been expected to do. And when it comes to finding a seat at the table, and comes to changing people's minds about where marketing budgets need to go, using some of these tools that Facebook gives you, such as like building audiences and building lookalikes, it gives you the power to prove your ROI. And if you can show that to your marketing department, I'm hard pressed to find someone who wouldn't at least consider giving you a bigger budget or giving you a seat at that table.
We will make Ryan Dodge's Ignite happen, right, guys? Yay!
All right,
What is it?
the power is in your hands.
You might bring back one more slide.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you want to have the little takeaway with the tips and tricks, come on up, say hi, grab some papers. We're happy to stay after and answer a few questions. Sorry, that hour went by so fast.
Thank you.